In 2021, Hong Kong's TVB television station reported an incredible story. A retired police officer from Luxembourg, receiving one of the world's highest pensions, gave up his comfortable life in a developed country to move to the poorest rural area in Guangxi, China. He lived among villagers with whom he shared no common language. At the time, he could not speak a single word of Chinese, yet he insisted on becoming the village secretary's assistant. Yet this foreigner, whose understanding of China came only from television programs, ended up staying in this impoverished Chinese village for several years. The local villagers grew incredibly close to him and even treated him as family. Nico is a retired police officer from Luxembourg. In his youth, he had always dreamed of seeing China's natural landscapes. So after retirement, the first thing Nico did was travel to China. Over the next 7 years, he visited many famous Chinese attractions and eventually chose to settle in the scenic region of Guangxi. By chance, he came to Jadong village as a poverty relief volunteer. The scenes before his eyes left him stunned. Empty mud houses and food that had almost no meat and was barely edible. The level of poverty here constantly shattered everything he thought he knew about the world. It turned out that there really were people who had nothing but their poverty. At first, he felt only shock, but when he saw that these villagers, who could barely feed themselves, were willing to offer him their best food, Nico was deeply moved by their kindness. He decided to use all his savings to help the villagers here and give them a better life. For the next 3 years, Nico lived and ate alongside the villagers of Jadong as a volunteer. These warm and loving moments were captured by TVB's cameras. But what puzzled the reporters was this. Even they, as Chinese speakers, could not understand the Guangxi dialect. So how could Nico, a foreigner, overcome the language barrier and communicate with the local villagers? The answer lay with another person, Xie Wanju, the Poverty Relief Secretary of Jadong Village. China has a poverty relief program that sends government workers to impoverished villages to serve as resident secretaries. These workers usually have higher education and can better help villagers with less education find ways to prosper. Jiwanju was one of them. Whenever Nico appeared on camera, Jiwanju was definitely by his side. The two were called the perfect team by the villagers. One could not understand Chinese, and the other's knowledge of English was limited to nodding and saying yes or shaking his head and saying no. Yet even so, this did not prevent them from communicating normally. Sometimes just one look was enough for them to know what the other wanted to say. Most of the time, they communicated with each other using hand gestures and body language. If they really encountered something they could not translate, they would turn to translation software on their phones.
OK， 这是不是你的是吧？
对，
大概说
啊，
我知道一点的稍微大鱼，
那都还泡烂了啊。他是
你看错，都是。
Whenever Xie Wanju encountered difficulties, the first person he thought of was Nico. Xie Wanju felt that Nico was his right-hand man, an incredibly capable helper. How did two people from different countries with completely unrelated life experiences form such a deep friendship? It all started in 2018. That year, Nico had just settled in Guangxi, and with time on his hands, he saw online that Jadong village was recruiting volunteers, so he signed up on his own initiative. His bond with Xie Wanju began from that moment. Both men shared a common goal in their hearts, to work hard to help the local people live better lives. Since becoming the Poverty Relief Secretary of Jadong Village, Xie Wanju had gone door to door visiting villagers, recording information and the current situation of each household, and even paid out of his own pocket to repair houses for the poorest families. However, to completely change the poverty situation in Jadong Village, these efforts were far from enough. Traditionally, Jadong village grew corn for income, but because it was deep in the mountains with limited farmland, the corn they planted was not even enough to feed the monkeys in the hills. After discussion, Xie Wanju and Nico decided to plant passion fruit, which was more valuable. During the planting process, Nico noticed that every household was still using shovels to dig the ground, so he contacted his friend in Germany and purchased a drilling machine, which saved the villagers a tremendous amount of labor and resources. 2 years later, the first batch of passion fruit brought a huge harvest and sold for a good price. The villagers were very grateful for their efforts. Although Nico was a foreigner, when villagers saw him, they felt as warm toward him as if he were family. Nico was deeply gratified to see the villagers' harvest. The reporter was very curious. She herself, as a Chinese speaker, could not understand the villagers' dialect, yet Nico could communicate with them and understand their needs. The reporter was quite puzzled by this. Nico said that language was not a barrier. What mattered was taking action. He was not there to have meetings and conversations with the villagers. He was there to help. Lifting people out of poverty is done through work, not through words. When he was working, naturally both sides understood each other. And in their daily interactions, Zhewanju also came to depend on Nico. When poverty relief work encountered difficulties, the first person he thought of was Nico. The most memorable incident for Zhewanju was in 2018, when a terrible rainstorm hit Jadong village and the passion fruit fields were flooded. When Nico received Zhewanju's phone call, despite the pouring rain outside, the two rushed to the passion fruit fields. At that time, they had no tools, so they scooped the water out of the fields with their bare hands. Later, he used his own money to buy rice for the disaster-affected villagers to help them get through the difficult times. During an interview with the film crew, the sky suddenly started pouring rain again. While everyone else was taking shelter, only Nico rushed toward the vegetable patch where green sprouts had just emerged. He said, "Oh no, the grandmother's vegetables are going to be ruined again." The phrase Nico used most often was "my boss," referring to Zhewanju. He said Zhewanju was both his boss and his best friend. Yet Zhewanju had never paid him a single cent in wages, and Nico still spent his own money to help the villagers.
你的 baby， 这是我的，怎么样？你可以抱来睡。
那就尝一下吧。
你不要吃饱，等下你怕拉肚子，我不怕。
People found it incredible, but Nico just did it without thinking he was doing anything special. There is a saying, if you want to prosper, first build roads. 14 rolling mountains trap Jadong village within them, not only bringing great inconvenience to the local people's travel, but also severely hindering local economic development. Jadong village had few people and many mountains, and building roads would cost a lot of money, making it economically unviable. There were many impoverished villages like Jadong, so the government usually arranged for villagers to relocate elsewhere. But because the villagers had lived here for generations and were deeply attached to their homeland, many people still remained. To build roads for the villagers, Zhewanju and Nico came up with a good solution. They participated in targeted charity poverty relief activities, such as charity runs to earn some income. They also took pork from Jadong village to sell, earning some money that way too. Nico's family members all donated money to contribute to their road-building cause. Along with donations from some kind-hearted people, they finally raised enough funds to build the road. Building roads through mountains was an extremely difficult task, and they could only excavate bit by bit. When the villagers learned this news, they all picked up their hoes and joined the road-building team. Finally, through everyone's joint efforts, a smooth cement road ran through the entire Jadong village. In the past, whether it was silk or passion fruit, everything had to be transported manually by the villagers. Now, with a wide and smooth road, transporting goods became much simpler and more convenient, and buyers even came to their door to purchase products. Mr. Mo, who specialized in raising silkworms in the village, could earn 30 to 40,000 yuan per year, which is approximately $5,000. After the road was completed, everything became more convenient. The two of them also led local villagers to establish livestock breeding bases. Some investors, after learning about their story and being inspired by them, came to the village to invest in building cattle farms, greatly boosting the village's economic development and increasing the villagers' income.
好看哟。
那种鸟都不放什么饲料的，就是整天吃那种野草，山上野草的。
这不吃你。
尼克，你知道鸟是什么意思吗？你不明白中国鸟是什么意思吗？
听不懂。
听不懂啊？
听不懂。
中国鸟是这个，真厉害。
Nico and Zhewanju, through their concrete actions, helped the villagers of Jadong village gradually climb out of the quagmire of poverty. After media publicity and reports, many people were moved by their story. But all good things must come to an end, and this duo, called the perfect team by countless internet users, also faced their separation. Now the situation in Jadong village was improving in every way, and Zia Wanju was about to be transferred back to work in the county town. He had been in Jadong village for 5 years and had seen his children only a handful of times. Even his children felt like strangers to their father. He felt he owed his family the most, but in his heart, everything that happened here was equally important. It had given his life great meaning and completely transformed the villagers' lives. Before leaving, he said goodbye to Nico and all the villagers of Jadong village. Everyone's eyes were filled with reluctant tears, constantly expressing their unwillingness to see Ziwanju go. Although Nico could not understand what they were saying, he could sense the villagers' emotional changes and knew their concerns. Though they did not share a common language, their hearts were connected.